Hello, singing friends. Welcome back to my channel. It's Miki here, your friendly neighborhood singing coach. Tonight I'm going to be reacting to Ofra Haza, Yabaye, the album studio version. This is a request from my viewer and friend Michal Hassani. For those of you who have not watched my Ofra videos before, I'll give you a little background on her. She is one of the most famous Middle Eastern crossover singers of all time. She's known as the Madonna of the Middle East. She was born in Tel Aviv to Yemenite parents. They emigrated from Yemen, and she was one of 9 children. She grew up in a very religious community, very poor, and joined a theater troupe, and that's where she was discovered by her manager. She had her first breakout in the Eurovision Song Contest, where she came in second with her performance of the song Chai, and she went on to have many albums and to appear on many soundtracks. And her music is a blend of traditional Middle Eastern sounds as well as more modern Western sounds. She died tragically very young at the age of 42 from complications from the AIDS virus, which she contracted from her businessman husband, who was a relapsed drug addict. And this, of course, cut her career and her life short. But she was extremely prolific in the time that she had, and she's really regarded as one of the most beautiful voices to come out of the Middle East. She's a mezzo-soprano, and she leaves behind an amazing oeuvre of work considering the short period of time that she was alive. So today's song, Yabaye, I have reviewed before, but never the studio record version. And I will read you the lyrics and I'll give you my interpretation of them now. So this is a song that was released in 1989. And the lyrics in English are, "Tell me why you've run. My mother always told me, don't forget, remember who you are. Listen to the voice that plays in your head. Make the right choice. Tell me why you run. My mother says, I had to see it my way because life is very short. The more I try to learn, the less I seem to know. Oh, I cry in my bed. I miss my home, the home I can't forget. I hear my mother's voice. Tell me why you cry. My mother says, don't run away." And then it repeats. So the way that I interpret this song is that even though the generations that come before us might try to impart their wisdom on us, we all have to make our own mistakes. And it's very hard to learn from other people's experiences. Unfortunately, I think we would do so much better as an organism if we were able to really evolve from generation to generation and take in all the wisdom of our forebears. Yet one of the things that is so heartbreaking and bittersweet about life is that you have to experience things for yourself. And that's both wonderful and also heartbreaking because we make the same mistakes over and over again. And we, in a lot of ways, are doomed to repeat the mistakes of our past, both our personal and societal and just as a human race mistakes of the past. So that's the way that I interpret it, that even though your parents might have the best of intentions in advising you on how to live your life, most people don't take that advice and have to kind of learn the hard way. So this is like the contradiction between yearning for that freedom and chafing against the yoke of your parents trying to advise and control you and guide you, and then going out into the world and having adventures and getting hurt and realizing that perhaps you should have listened more to what the previous generation had to offer you. So that's the way that I interpret it, but let me know if you have a different interpretation of the lyrics. So without further ado, let's check out the album version of Ofra Haza, Ya Baye. Pause it there for a moment. I apologize. I will put the link to the uninterrupted song in the description box below. So I really like this so far. I think it's very different than the more stripped down live version. And I love the layers of loops and all the different instrumentation and the chorus of voices. And I also just like the way her voice almost sounds like it's looped, in that she is using a lot of melismas, yet they're very short, repetitious phrases. And it gives it just this motion, this momentum. There's really, really good energy in the track. It's very upbeat. And even though I wouldn't say that this is like a happy song, it definitely has a good energy to it. I really, really like the vibe. And I just love that it's like chunked in that way. That's like these little Lego bricks that are like repeated in the way that she's singing it and in the production with the loops as well. So it's like very repetitious and kind of easy to latch onto immediately. It's very catchy. I just love the repetitious nature of it. There's something that it like hammers it into your brain, you know. It's so repetitious that it becomes very catchy and very easy to sing along to. That my mother says, ya baye, ya baye. My mother says, ya baye, ya baye. My mother says, you know, it just like repeats over and over again. And so it really gets stuck in your head. There's something that's really cool about that and very memorable. And I also think this is a really good example of the blend of Eastern and Western sounds. So there are those really, really nice melismatic scales and things going on. And you hear it in the instrumentation as well as in her voice. There are those really, really nice Middle Eastern sounding scales on whatever that is, like the synthesized sitar or whatever in the background. And then you've got the percussion that sounds very Middle Eastern, and yet there's a lot of really modern elements, modern for the time. But I actually think this production holds up better than some of the other stuff that I've heard of hers. And you hear that kind of like dancey quality and the beat and everything else. So the blend of that with the more traditional scales and sounds and chanting and melismas is just like a really interesting marriage, a really interesting hybrid. And the perfect example of how she was able to fuse two very different musical cultures and make it sound like it belonged together. It was this beautiful marriage of sounds.
Don't run away. Yabba, yeah, yabba, yeah. Don't run away. Yabba, yabba, yeah.
Really interesting stuff going on in the production. I really, really liked that Tell Me Why section where they had the drone where the background instrument stayed on the same repeated figure over and over again while her voice was kind of changing over it. And then they go into this part with the harmonies now where she's adding another vocal layer on top. There's so much going on, and yet it doesn't sound cluttered. It all really, really works well together. And I love just the scale. It almost sounds like a snake charmer kind of melody, you know. I don't know what that instrument in the background is. It sounds like maybe it's like an oboe or something playing that line, that scale. I don't know what it is exactly, but it is like some kind of synthesized instrument, but it's really cool what it's playing. It's very Middle Eastern sounding, almost like a simulacrum of like what you would imagine a Middle Eastern kind of sound would be, you know, because obviously it's not purely this traditional sound, but it's a very, very nice blend of the modern and that simulacrum of that Middle Eastern sound, you know. Very cool. I thought that was beautiful. And there's something very haunting too about the lyrics, you know, where she says that she like cries in her bed and she misses her home and all these things. It's actually very sad, some of the lyrics. And this picture is so haunting of her beautiful face and those like sad, mournful eyes, and knowing kind of the history of how her life turned out and how tragic it was. The whole thing is kind of like haunting and very melancholy. And I think it's a really, really beautiful song. I really, really love it. And hearing it in the studio version with all the different layers of the vocals together, especially at the end where she's singing that, "Don't run away, don't run away. My mother said, tell me why. And all those different vocal lines are kind of interleaving. It's really cool how they made everything work. There's so many different layers and yet it doesn't sound cluttered. So I thought it was a great track, really, really nice production of a really, really beautiful song. So thank you so much for suggesting that I look at it, Melly Hot. I hope that you enjoyed my reaction, and I'll see you guys here next time. If it's a Monday, I'll see you Wednesday. If it's a Wednesday, I'll see you Monday. Until then, take care. And of course, happy singing.